Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today let's talk about why the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, being pretty terrible is actually pretty great for Dungeons and Dragons. All right, so Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, it is bog awful. Oh my gosh, is it bad? I'll just list them off real quick. The biggest issue is, you know, our world is structured poorly, and men were not good to women for centuries, maybe millennia, right? And so the fix to this is that women are empowered in fiction and men are empowered in fiction, and this is so bad in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. So I watched season 1. I have some commentary right here on the channel about that, and I'm watching season 2, and it's painful, right? Because so I read all of the Lord of the Rings, and I read The Hobbit, right? That's all I've read of Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I didn't mess with the Silmarillion, but I'm a pretty big fan, and I really enjoyed the films as well, right? And in the films and in the books, elves were incredibly dangerous reapers, right? But in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, every male elf is, what were they training for? Like, there's a scene where Galadriel goes with the male elf warriors, and she's like, okay, these are barrow wights, right? And all the elf men literally stand with their swords in their sheaths, don't know what to do. Don't know. They were not trained. They were not trained to draw their swords in battle, right? And so Galadriel says to say, draw your sword, right? She's already got her sword out. The barrel rights are literally growling at them, and they're all just standing there, right? And then, and she doesn't say it. It's just in the script. Okay, now some of you male elves run up there and get killed so that I can take one swing and just win the battle. Or now Elrond ends up winning the battle, with a sword that one of them was killed by later. But it was just so terrible, right? And I don't even know what the opposite of the word misogynistic is, but this show is the opposite of the words misogynistic. Also, all the dwarf miners are like, hey, we're going to go down there, we're going to drill, we're going to, hit the rocks with our hammers and we're going to hit the rocks with our hammers. We're going to bring out the mithril. And then his wife's just like, y'all can stop that. Here you go. I'm going to sing. Right? And mithril just falls out of the mountain. And you're like, oh my gosh. And the thing is, I love the dwarf prince's wife. She's fantastic, right? She's really good. And Galadriel is good. The point is, you don't have to make the men suck. That's the point, right? And it's, as a man, it's painful to watch, right? I don't want disempowered women, and I don't want disempowered men. And this show is insistent. They're like, the only way the women can be strong is if every man in the show sucks, like, hard. And you're like, that's not cool, man. Okay, so it's terrible. And you just heard my nerderotic material, all right? Like, my nerderotic-like material. So why is this great for Dungeons & Dragons? Well, first of all, the fate of Lord of the Rings rests in Dungeons & Dragons. We just got a book this year that fully confirmed that Dungeons & Dragons 0 edition, actually Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition, Dungeons & Dragons 1st edition contained the word Hobbit, Balrog, and was fully compatible with Lord of the Rings, right? And when that happened in 1974, it was a crime, literally. Now, Tolkien Estates are perfectly fine with it. You know why? Because Hasbro's sending them checks for millions of dollars every month because of Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings. Also, Lego Dungeons & Dragons is a thing. Where are we going to get all our orc parts? Where are we going to get all our elf parts? Where are we going to get all our halfling parts? Lego Lord of the Rings. The fate of Lord of the Rings, the fate of literally the Tolkien estate, is deeply intertwined with Gygaxian Dungeons & Dragons VE right now. Okay? Now, this show is bog awful. It is painful to watch. But it is good that it exists. And the reason why is Dungeons & Dragons needs Lord of the Rings to succeed. And it doesn't matter how bad you make this stuff, Not having something is worse. Space Above and Beyond. I just watched a show the other day and they're like, this thing disappeared off the map. Ain't nobody even realized it exists. That's right. It's better to have a bad series than no series. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is bad, but it's going to carry us through, right? Just like we're going to get a Henry Cavill Highlander, Lord of the Rings is Highlander too, right? It carries the ball forward. And Lord of the Rings has to succeed for the not for the success of the Tolkien estate. That doesn't matter anymore. For the success of Dungeons and Dragons. Because Lord of the Rings has carefully intertwined its future success with specifically with Dungeons and Dragons. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion, nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.